Another year with the Switch has come and gone, and what a great year it's been. Some people claim that the year has been a letdown after the massive 2017 that Nintendo had, but honestly, I'm not sure where that claim's coming from. From where I'm standing, it just looks like another great year for the Switch, and we're about to count down my top 10 favorite games that I've played this year. Before we start, let me set a few ground rules. I won't be including any of the free-to-play games such as Paladins, Fortnite, or Warframe on today's list. I'll also not be including any games I haven't played the Nintendo Switch versions of, like South Park: The Fractured But Whole or Diablo 3. While these are fun games, I feel that it would be unfair of me to include them since I've only played them on Xbox or PS4. I also want to do some honorable mentions before the list starts. Go Vacation is a fun port of a Wii game, and while I enjoy roaming around the island, playing mini-games and wasting time, I feel there's not quite enough there to make me consider it one of my favorite games of the year. West of Loathing is an extremely funny and at some points disgusting RPG, and for a cheap price, it's definitely worth the experience, but the combat is not very deep and the overall experience is not very rewarding once you've experienced the story. A Normal Lost Phone is a wonderfully written game with intrigue and emotion, but the short experience does not lend itself to repeat playthroughs once you already know the puzzle answers. All three of these games are terrific in their own right, but just not quite enough to make my top 10 list. I also want to mention two major DLC expansions that came out this year. Splatoon 2 got its Octo expansion, which is everything I ever wanted and more. It adds a new challenge, new gear, lore, and some incredibly inventive levels, but I didn't feel like it was fair to include DLC on the list. Xenoblade 2 got an even bigger DLC expansion called Torna: The Golden Country. I debated whether or not I should include this one. The DLC was expansive enough that it got its very own release as well. While I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and I even think that in some regards it surpassed its original game, I decided that it would not be fair to include this on the top 10 list, seeing as how I got it as DLC. I will say though, that if this had come out in 2017 instead of 2018, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 would have beaten out Breath of the Wild as my favorite game of last year. The very last games I want to mention before the list starts are games that I have enjoyed so far, but simply have not played enough of to truly place them on the list. Celeste, Dead Cells, Little Dragon's Cafe, and Yoku's Island Express are games that I have yet to sink my teeth into, but from what little I have played, I can tell that I will enjoy each one of them by the time I'm finished. Now that the honorable mentions are out of the way, let's start the countdown. Keep in mind that these are the Switch games that I got the most enjoyment out of throughout 2018, and I'll do my best to fully explain why I loved each and every one. If you disagree with my choices, that's great. After all, this is only my personal opinion, and I would love to read your own choices in the comments below. Let's get on with the list. Scribblenauts Unlimited and Scribblenauts Unmasked have made their way onto the Switch in the Scribblenauts Mega Pack. I enjoyed my time in the Wii U versions of both games, and now that I can play them on the go, I'm enjoying them even more. I'll admit, I'm a fan of puzzle games, and as someone who's had a passion for writing since I was 7, these games hit all the right notes for me. I do think the games were slightly better with the gamepad on the Wii U acting as the notepad, but even with the slight control change, I still enjoy the relaxing atmosphere and puzzle solving in these cute little adventures. And since there are two games in this one package, if you haven't had the opportunity to play either of these games, now is the perfect time to try them out. Kirby Star Allies caught a lot of flack when it released earlier in the year for being too easy, which confuses me to no end because Kirby games have always been very easy. After all, it's a platformer with no time limit, in which the player basically has unlimited jumps and can absorb the power of his or her enemies. Difficulty in video games has been a main talking point more and more, and I have quite a bit to say on this matter, but perhaps that will be for another video. In the case of this game in particular, the appeal for me is not and will never be how difficult or easy the levels and bosses are. The appeal of this game, and what most people I've heard talk about it are missing, is the co-op experience. This game may not be for everyone, but for me the co-op gameplay and the combining of abilities makes for a very enjoyable and fun experience. And isn't that what games are for at the end of the day? The game is not perfect by any means, I haven't checked the last few free DLC updates, but the last time I played, I wished that you could simply choose which dream friend you wanted to play as or with instead of using a roulette wheel during your first playthrough. However, the game is still a cute and enjoyable co-op experience. One of my favorite Wii U games was Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and this past year, Nintendo blessed us with a Switch version. The game has a few additional levels and a new 2-player mode. While the 2-player mode is nothing too special, I mean the second player acts as an onlooker throwing turnips at the screen to take out enemies, the main gameplay is just as fun as I remember it being in the original version. As Captain Toad, you have to wander around in a small puzzle area to gather treasure and complete other special objectives, all without the ability to jump or attack enemies unless you find a hammer or turnip. As I said earlier in this video, I have a soft spot for puzzle games, and this combines my love of puzzles and Mario to make one amazing game. If you never had the opportunity to play the Wii U version, then this port is the way to go. It's been quite a while since I could say that the new Mario Party was a great game, and boy am I happy to say that Super Mario Party is a great game. Nintendo has finally listened to the fans and abandoned the car mechanic from the previous games. Now, players move themselves around one of the 4 boards with one of 80 minigames being played at the end of each round. Players choose their main character, which will determine which special die block they can use. But throughout the game, each player can also pick up allies, which will add an extra 1 or 2 to every roll, as well as allow the player to choose another special die block to roll. That's only the classic mode. There is also a team game which acts as a 2v2 version of the classic game, a cooperative river rafting mode in which 4 players work together to make their way down the river, a single player challenge mode in which 1 player makes his or her way through every single minigame with an added challenge element, a special mode for handheld mode in which 2 Switch systems are used, a minigame select screen to play any minigame, each of which feels terrific to play, and a rhythm game with unique minigames in there. There is a limited online mode in which you can play a small selection of the minigames, but in all honesty, the best way to play Mario Party is with people in one room, so the online feature never really interested me. Luckily, there is so much to do in this game that in a party setting, you'll never get bored playing this game. I look forward to seeing what they do in the future. Perhaps we can get some DLC, which includes new boards, minigames, and perhaps the one good feature from Mario Part 10, which was Bowser Party. After the disappointment of Star Fox Zero, I'm happy to have a good Star Fox game to play. Now I know what you're thinking. That's Starlink, Battle for Atlas, but let's face it, this is a Star Fox game. I'll be honest, I haven't fully sunk my teeth into the story of this game, so I may actually end up liking the other characters. At this point, however, I've only played as Fox McCloud in his R-Wing. When I look at this game, I can't help but feel like this is what I wanted No Man's Sky to be. Each planet is massive, and you can freely travel between them whenever you want. There is a huge selection of missions to accomplish, enemies to fight, and creatures to scan. The different weapon combinations add an element of experimentation to the game, which makes combat exciting on the planet's surface. I love open world games. I also love space exploration. I also love Star Fox, so this combination is enough to hold me over until EA decides to butcher the rumored open universe Star Wars game they have. There are a few things in Starlink that bother me though. First is that if you don't have the digital copy of the game, the ships can be a bit irritating to work with while playing the actual game. Luckily, I have them all unlocked digitally, so I don't really have to worry about that. The other thing is space combat. I've never really enjoyed space combat in any game, so I expected to not enjoy my time with it as well in here. The actual gameplay between the exploration and land combat is enough to make up for the space combat in my mind. It even allows you the opportunity to escape space combat if you have the reflexes to maneuver through the traps that space pirates set. Overall, this is a massive game with some massive space fun. The last game in the Mario Tennis series was a huge letdown. It felt like zero effort was put into making the game fun. This year, however, Nintendo has revitalized yet another series on the Switch. Mario Tennis Aces adds some amazing elements to the gameplay with the zone shot and zone speed, as well as the potential to break rackets, causing a player to forfeit if they run out during the match. They also included a single-player story mode. The story mode is shorter than expected, but the challenges and boss fights were fun enough to make it worth the time. I do wish they had included the RPG elements of rackets with different stats into the main game. It would be really interesting to collect different rackets that you could then take into tournaments. The main meat and potatoes of the game is the simple game of tennis. You can play the simple version, which eliminates zone shots and special moves, leaving only the standard types of shots: slice, topspin, flat, lob, and drop. The standard mode, which includes all of those new zone additions, and a motion control mode in case you had a desire to go back to the old days of Wii Sports Tennis. These modes also include 1v1 or 2v2 doubles. There's also a tournament mode in which you can play offline or online. While I love the fact that they brought the Mario Tennis series back to a quality where it should have been in the Wii U version, I will admit that it's still not at the level of the 3DS version. The consistent drip feed of new characters and the recently added challenge mode is nice, but I would love to see the inclusion of some of the 3DS game modes, which included rally challenges and timed challenges as well. These are in the story mode, but it would be nice to have a separate section on the main menu in which you could easily jump into one of these challenges. Overall though, Mario Tennis Aces is a fun game with tight controls. Hopefully, they can make more Mario sports titles worth playing for the Switch in the years to come. It was disappointing to hear that Capcom was not bringing Monster Hunter World to the Switch, but we did get Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. I've been playing this series since Monster Hunter 3, and each version has gotten better. I missed the 3DS version of Generations, but now I have the ability to play the game on the Switch. After World, it is a bit difficult to go back to loading screens in between every area, but the gameplay is just as solid as ever. The thing that really intrigues me about the series as a whole is that there are no character stats in the typical RPG sense. Instead, you have to hunt monsters to upgrade equipment and forge weapons that have the abilities and stats that will be good against your next hunt. Even after that, the only way to ensure victory during your next hunt is to observe your target closely. Even with good equipment, you need to learn what each monster does, what it eats, where it sleeps, and what attacks it will perform in any given situation. You need to learn the tells and patterns if you have any hope of success. While Monster Hunter World is still my favorite in the series, I have no problems saying that Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is a close second. Everybody knew this game was going to be on the list, and for good reason. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is the definitive version of Smash. Every character is back, with some surprising and unique newcomers as well, and every single fighter feels good to play. While playing on random, I found that even characters I usually stay away from simply just feel right. I plan on doing another list in the future going over my favorite characters to play as, so I won't go into too much detail, but my mains from Smash 4 somehow feel even better here. What really makes this game the ultimate, though, is just how much there is in the game. You can customize rule sets and set them as default in all the game modes. You can fully customize your controls and link them to your profile. You can choose which music tracks play on each stage as long as it's from the same series. You can turn off stage hazards, turn every stage into Battlefield or Omega forms, and even turn off certain stages entirely when playing on random. The adventure mode is massive, with plenty of challenge to be found. The Spirit Board offers constant new challenges and drives a collector like me crazy trying to get every single spirit. The new tournament setting allows you to set up a custom tournament on your own system. The best of 3 or 5 sets and Smashdown modes allow for even more unique challenges to play with your friends. Then, Classic Mode is unique for every character. Some even have unique boss fights that feel epic in scale. Smash Ultimate is truly the ultimate Smash game, and I cannot wait for Piranha Plant and Joker to be added in through the DLC fighters. I'm even more excited to see the remaining 4 DLC fighters. The only thing I can find in terms of a negative is that I wish you could save alternate skin selections to a player profile as well. That way you can select a character and always have the costume or color you want. It's a small nitpick, but when they give a game as complete as this one, what else can I really complain about? I love turn-based RPGs. It's part of what drives me to love Pokemon. There's one turn-based RPG that came out on the Switch this year that I knew I was going to enjoy, but it surprised me how much I absolutely fell in love with it. Octopus Traveller looks absolutely gorgeous with its unique art style. The music adds to the overall atmosphere perfectly. The voice acting is extremely well done, with one exception, but we'll get there. While the main path is very linear and most of the treasures can be found without too much exploration, I never found myself bored by the gameplay. A major reason for this is the break system, the multi-classing options, and the unique abilities of each character in the game. The stories were also very well written. While many of the characters fit into a typical fantasy stereotype or cliché, that doesn't mean that they are poorly written. By the end of the game and after completing all 8 storylines, I found that I enjoyed every story I played through, and I ended up feeling very attached to almost every character. To be honest, there was only one character I ended up disliking, and it really came down to the voice acting. Honnet aggravated me to no end. I can understand the need to diversify the voices and make each character unique, but the fake Old English accent,
letting my arrow fly and true.
It's really distracting, and it's upsetting because her story was interesting, but I disliked the accent so much that it took away from the impact of her story. While every story felt complete and I enjoyed all of them for different reasons, the standouts for me were Tressa, Ophelia, and Alphen. Primrose is an honorable mention due to an amazing final boss confrontation, and Ulberic is an honorable mention due to the fact that, well, and the fact that he is obscenely overpowered and amazing. I know that Square doesn't plan on any DLC for this game as they think it's a complete game, but I do hope they either do a sequel or another game in the same style. Perhaps next time they could make a game in which the individual characters actually interact with each other throughout the story. I feel like if the game had done that, then it would have made its way to number 1 on the list. It's no surprise that my favorite game of the year is ShackFoo. I love beat-em-ups. Sorry, I couldn't resist. My real favorite Switch game of the year is Pokemon Let's Go. This includes both Pikachu and Eevee versions, seeing as how they are basically the same game, but if anyone is interested, I played through Pikachu in my first playthrough. This is a controversial entry in the series, but I feel that this, more than any other Pokemon game, truly captures the essence of what makes a Pokemon journey special. Many people were hesitant because the game eliminated wild Pokemon battles with the exception of legendaries, which act as a sort of raid battle from Pokemon Go. This never bothered me because I never truly battle wild Pokemon. I usually either use False Swipe and then a ball, which is basically using a berry and throwing a ball, or I use a Quick Ball, which is just throwing a ball. As for battles, they are still in the game in the trainer and gym battles. The other controversial change is the elimination of held items and abilities. This, to me, makes sense. After all, they're redoing Generation 1, and neither of those elements were in the original games. I've wanted to make a video going into more detail about my feelings on Let's Go, but that, I feel, will come later. For now, let's talk about what makes this game my favorite game of the year. I love the partner Pokemon. I started with Pokemon Yellow, and playing this game really made me feel like I was a kid again, starting my journey with Pikachu by my side. The only difference is that now I can see the animated interactions with my partner. The short cutscenes add to the overall impact, and by the end of the game, I had a bond with Pikachu stronger than any bond I've ever had with my starter Pokemon. The ability to change my party wherever I am makes leveling up more convenient. Not easier, which many people argue, but definitely less time-consuming and more convenient. That's basically a way to describe most of this game. There are many quality of life features in here that make the game less time-consuming. Not easier or harder, but definitely less time-consuming than most other Pokemon games. You can skip cutscenes. You can switch your party wherever you are. The wild encounters take less time due to the fact that it's simplified and also entirely possible to avoid them altogether because of the fact that they're in the overworld and you can see them. And the experience you get from chaining Pokemon captures makes leveling up much less of a time sink. The candy system replacing EVs is something that I hope stays in only the Let's Go series and not the other mainline games, but it is fun to play around with it. What really sets this above the other games for me, though, is what it did for the post-game. While I enjoy breeding and getting a team battle ready, I will admit that it's very tedious work and it's not for everyone. What this game did is add a battle challenge in the Master Trainers for the hardcore trainers, as well as make shiny hunting fun and accessible to everyone. For the first time in the series, it also made a big emphasis on the original tagline of "Gotta catch 'em all." That goal is not only attainable for everyone in their main journey, but it also makes it more beneficial to do so through the rewards of experience to level up, candy to power up, and berries to make future captures easier. The games are not perfect. I dislike the bag setup and wish it was still a tab system where each type of item was separated into a different pocket. I also would have liked to see the GTS and more online battle options, such as random matchmaking. Overall though, Pokemon Let's Go is a terrific entry into the franchise, and I cannot wait to see what they do for future games. Those are my top 10 favorite Switch games of 2018. Were there any games not on my list that you think deserve to be there? Let me know in the comments below. Chances are, if I didn't mention a game, I probably didn't get to play it, and I'm always looking for another game to play. Until next time, this has been Ace Trainer Cody.